Carroll. Good morning, Stephen.
Hello, Catherine.
We're going to start off with our top news story, the business side of that. The sanctions on Russia announced by the US and Europe didn't seem to have much of an effect on the markets yesterday.
No, in fact, there were gains across the board on Europe and in the United States yesterday as those measures were outlined by authorities in the United States and in the EU. Relief among investors sent the markets into positive territories. You can see there the Dow Jones up by over 1.1%. That was helped by some positive US factory data helping those markets into the green. A similarly positive picture in Asia today. The Nikkei up over 1% to 1.6%, in fact. Excuse me. After hitting that 6-week low yesterday, more muted gains on the Chinese markets that you can see there, with the Kospi and Seoul also edging up towards 1% in positive territory. Now, the real reason the markets have shown such relief after those sanctions is because the measures announced by the United States and the European Union have avoided key economic areas. But as Kyle Brown now explains, it's a potential third phase of sanctions that could still cause worries for investors.
The markets shrugged off any notion that Western sanctions would have an immediate impact on Russia or on the global economy. 21 Russian and Ukrainian officials will be hit with travel bans and asset freezes. They were singled out for what is thought to be their role in Crimea's referendum endorsing annexation by Russia.
At the end of the day, these are economic pinpricks which are meant to hit the political surroundings, so the personal surroundings of Putin.
The US and the European Union deem Crimea's referendum and Russia's recognition of its independence as illegitimate. Europe is dependent on Russia for much of its energy, especially oil and natural gas. So far, the sanctions have not extended to cover energy. There's likely little European appetite for more penalties reaching into the energy sector, out of concern for Russian reprisals.
We've also started discussing today the longer term, the need to make Europe as a whole less dependent on energy from Russia. And that is also something that Russian leaders have to think about, have to worry about over the coming years if they don't adjust the way they have behaved over Ukraine.
European leaders will meet on Thursday and Friday to determine whether more individuals will be targeted with sanctions. And they'll examine the possibility of further measures.
Right, we're going to look to the United States next. Stephen, General Motors announcing another major recall of some of its cars.
Yeah, 1.5 million vehicles affected by this latest recall by General Motors over issues including problems with airbags and a braking system in certain vehicles. Now, this comes less than 2 months after the carmaker was forced to recall another 1.6 million smaller vehicles over faulty ignition switches. That issue was linked to some 12 deaths in the United States. Now, General Motors says the recalls are costing it around $300 million. CEO Mary Barra says the company is changing the way it investigates reports of defects.
In each case, we have pledged to cooperate fully while we work to make the recall itself as smooth as possible for our customers. These are serious developments that shouldn't surprise anyone. After all, something went wrong with our process in this instance, and terrible things happened.
A quick look now at some of the day's other business stories, and we'll start here in France, where a strike by air traffic controllers is leading to the cancellation of up to 1/3 of flights here. The French Civil Aviation Authority has asked airlines to reduce traffic through Paris's airports by 30% and by 20% through regional air hubs. That's part of a day of action called by unions against President Hollande's plans to reduce social charges for employers. And South Korea has awarded its first casino license to a foreign investor. Caesars Entertainment, along with Indonesia's LIPPO, have been given permission for a new casino resort near the country's largest airport. Local laws prohibit South Koreans from gambling in casinos. The government is hoping the venture will attract foreign visitors.
Okay, well, from casinos to whiskey, it's a little bit early in the morning here in Paris for that sort of thing. But still, Stephen, tell us about new restrictions on, controversial restrictions on whiskey brewing in Tennessee.
Yeah, so to be a whiskey in Tennessee officially, you have to abide by very strict conditions. This is according to a law passed by the state last year. Now, I can tell you that Tennessee whiskey must be made in the state from at least 51% corn and filtered through maple, charcoal and aged in new charred oak barrels. That just happens to be the recipe for Jack Daniel's, which is the, of course, best known Tennessee whiskey, makes up about 90% of the production in the state. But the drinks giant Diageo, which owns a rival to Jack Daniels, has taken issue with this. The huge controversy erupted over this, both sides accusing each other of diluting the brand of Tennessee whiskey. Now the state legislature is going to look at it again. There's going to be a debate in the Tennessee House and Senate later this Tuesday. Tennessee whiskey under the microscope there again.
Wow, interesting stuff. Of course, my dad, who's Scottish, would say that none of it's whiskey at all because it's not single malt Scottish whiskey. But there we go. That's another debate, isn't it? Thanks very much for now, Stephen Carroll. Back in an hour's time with more business news for you. For now, we're going to take a check on all the top stories buzzing online in web news.
This video has been viewed some 100